What makes a great adaptation? Where is the fine line drawn that separates necessary change for the sake of the given medium from purposeless vandalization of that original work? Is a truly faithful adaptation, and specifically, let's talk about Tolkien, even possible? Now, more than ever before, questions like these are coming to the forefront of conversations regarding the multitude of remakes and sequels and prequels that bombard the modern viewer. Of course, the one adaptation that stands apart from everything else is Amazon's Rings of Power. From the major divergences in plot lines to altering beloved characters' personalities and behaviors to aesthetic choices and even their hairstyles, Rings of Power has changed just about everything from the source material, and not necessarily for the better. As I pointed out and will continue to point out in my reviews, they can't even get the lighting right. However, is it possible that fans of Tolkien have just been nitpicking a little bit too much? That perhaps we've already made up our minds about Rings of Power before we've even seen it? After all, some things will inevitably need to be changed. This is something that Peter Jackson and his team were well aware of when they adapted the Lord of the Rings trilogy, having changed several aspects and omitting characters and storylines constantly. This leads to those earlier sets of questions that I hope to make a decent attempt at addressing in this video. So first, let's talk about what makes a great adaptation. Is it really as simple as copying and pasting every line that the characters say in these stories? This is something you can often see in adaptations of Shakespeare's work. Well, my belief is that no, it's something a little bit more abstract. Let's take, for example, the difference between two film versions of Mary Shelley's classic tale, Frankenstein, one from 1931 and the other from 1994. While the Robert De Niro-led 94 version follows the plot of the book very accurately, I believe the Boris Karloff 1931 version actually captured the spirit of the book in a way that could never be replicated, even in that 94 version, specifically with its visual depiction of the relationship between Frankenstein and his creation. One of the most tragic aspects of the book was that despite the fact that the monster desired to strive towards the light in life, his creator and society itself only ever saw him as a monster, and they continually threw him back into the darkness, pushing him back towards violence and destruction. Now, despite the plot differences in the 31 version, which border on innumerable, this fundamental aspect of the relationship between these two characters is visually depicted in this hauntingly beautiful scene, which is one but of many in this film that I believe capture the essence of Mary Shelley's work. Now, this is also something that I believe Peter Jackson and Andrew Leslie had successfully accomplished in their adaptation of Lord of the Rings, specifically capturing the essence of Tolkien's descriptions, despite the many plot differences and character differences. Now, to see my favorite example of this, check out this video I have here where I outline the differences between two very similar looking shots from Lord of the Rings and the Rings of Power. Now, the next question I want to address is that fine line between necessary change when adapting a book to film versus unnecessary change simply for the sake of such. This issue is centered around purpose and the intent of the filmmaker adapting the work, the latter of which is almost impossible to truly know. Let's take, for example, this change that was made in the Fellowship of the Ring adaptation. In the book, Frodo is saved by an elf who fans of Tolkien's other work will readily recognize, but when adapting the scene for the film, it just wouldn't make sense to have a character show up for just this one moment and then completely disappear. So, in this case, the change is in fact a good one. Or we could look at the omission of Tom Bombadil, which is a great character in the book, but he would have absolutely slowed down this lengthy film to a crawl. Let's contrast this with the changes done to Galadriel's character in the Rings of Power. These changes were made to make her a sort of battle-hardened warrior, and it seems out of place since it's in direct contradiction to Tolkien's original intent. And especially since there could be so many other characters, even original characters they could create if need be, that could fit into the role she plays in this series. Lastly, to address the question of if faithful adaptations of Tolkien are even possible, the answer is both yes and no, as no adaptation, even one that copies character lines verbatim, like with Shakespeare, will get absolutely every single detail correct. And if they could, it's more likely than not that they miss the point of the original work itself, focusing too much on simply trying to recreate this work. It's in the same way that if you had a shot-for-shot remake of a classic film, it would offer nothing new to the spirit of that original work. Having an adaptation that would be 100% accurate would likely have that same result, ending up feeling empty and kind of shallow. However, like with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, an adaptation that is faithful to the spirit of Tolkien's work is entirely possible. Now, how to achieve this, I believe, would lie in both the intent of the filmmaker wanting to present Tolkien the best that they could and focusing on a single manageable story, something like The Tale of Beren and Luthien, or maybe The Children of Húrin, for example. Well, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, share it around, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel for more videos just like this. And let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on adaptations?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.